came and formed in a line, single file by legions, some of this and all other centuries, representing a period of 20,000 years. All had come to be judged, the living and the dead, and the recording secretary opened his great book of many centuries and said, I am instructed to examine this host of men who have been the champions of all combats that have for 20,000 years raged between disease and health. Every victory of both sides must be recorded, and a crown will be awarded to each and every man who has under his arm the captured flag of the opposing enemy. At this time, the adjutant called aloud that an inspection was ordered, and all arms and ammunitions would be inspected. All guns that shot backward as hard as forward would be rejected, and the general who used them would be court-martialed, and if found guilty he would have his shoulder straps and buttons cut off and be sent to the asylum for mental repairs. At this time, a great burly red-faced doctor stood at the head of the antediluvian division and was called first. The judge-advocate said, State if you know how you treated bilious fever before the flood. Well, Judge, I gave copious sweats, drastic purgatives of jalapam, aloes, and tooth powders. Stop, sir, said the judge. What do you mean by tooth powders? Your Honor, I mean calomel, which loosens the teeth nicely. We gave that, sir, so they could not eat for a few days, sir. We believed that fever was caused by an engorgement of the stomach, and we gave them such sore mouths that they could not eat, sir. What school do you belong to? Asked the judge. The regulars, sir, answered the doctor with great pride and emphasis, and the judge, who could restrain himself no longer, said, Regular fools, that is what you are. Don't you know the effects of mercury are to destroy the power of the system, produce bone and teeth, and with both diseased you can never have a healthy constitution? In short, you are advocating a system that is unnatural and destructive to life, and the world would be better off without you. And the judge opened the doctor's packages, jars, and bottles, and found they contained the deadly poisons of all ages, which the doctor said had an honorable place among the regulars. He asked the doctor by what authority he gave the most deadly poisons as a remedy for disease. The doctor said, Your Honor, tradition is the day-star of our profession. The judge smiled and said, Bugler, blow the call for the Major General of the next century. At the call, a very fine steed and coach, with baggage wagon and servants, formed into line for inspection. The General of Drugs gave the salute of his day to the judge and said, Most excellent inspector, according to your instruction, I am proud to form my men in line for your inspection. The judge then turned to the inspector. Examine his arms and ammunition and see if he has made any improvement on the preceding centuries in subduing diseases. The inspector saluted and stepped forward. What school do you represent, doctor? He asked. Your Honor, the regulars, the sons of legalized tradition. How do you treat bilious fever? Well, sir, we give emetics and purgatives. What medicines do you depend on in the first stage? After peaking, we use our tooth powders. What do you mean by tooth powders? Your Honor, that is calomel. What is the cause of bilious fever, doctor? Well, tradition has taught us it is the engorgement of the stomach. Why does your school use calomel? Because by making the teeth and mouth very sore, the patient cannot overload the stomach. Adjutant, compare these 2 centuries and note the progress, if any, says judge. Adjutant salutes and report to the judge. No progress whatever, judge. The 1st and 2nd centuries are just the same. By this time the judge grows indignant and tells his bugler to call the 18th century. With all their legalized pomp, they lined up for inspection, and the judge said, in a short, quick, and commanding voice, Doctor, what school do you represent? Well, Judge, I am an allopath of the regular school. I graduated in the eclectic, Thompsonian, and homeopathic schools, also in orificial surgery. What is the cause and cure of bilious fevers? Well, by tradition we are educated to believe the cause of bilious fever is engorgement of the stomach. However, we believe the vermiform appendix has much to do with the metastasis in the diathesis, which often forms fibroid tumors. Stop that stuff, said the judge, or I will have you put on bread and water for 90 days for contempt at court. Who wants to hear that lingo of words? I want you to tell me how many victories can you show on the side of remedy versus disease. You will be held strictly to victories, not suppose-sos and perhaps, but such cases if you have known and cured by any method. You may give 10 cases drugged and 10 not drugged, all about the same age, sex, and all having the same kind of disease, of the same seasons of the year, and with the same care. This court demands truth and will have it. The penalty for a false statement is 21 years bucksaw and whip each 7 p.m. that you have not sawed one cord of wood twice in two. At this period the doctor said, Will your honor please give me until the May term of court to put in my answer? The judge asked the M.D. of many diplomas and why he wanted more time, and the doctor said, because he was intending to take a full course of osteopathy at Kirksville, Missouri, and the judge smiled and said, Go on, old man, but I will be more rigid on you in May than now. Why so? Because osteopathy is a true science and will solve many problems of which an M.D. has no conception. Well, Judge, said the doctor in a very plaintive voice, won't you be so good as not to call me in May and allow me to be tried 2 years hence? Yes, replied the judge, but you had better get your bucksaw, for if you fail you cannot bury that which your other failures. The judge dismissed the M.D. for 2 years with heavy bonds to appear, and the doctor was so thankful he got into his fine chariot, servants and all, and pulled for a school of osteopathy. The judge ordered the adjutant to have the bugler call 3 osteopaths before him. At the first sound of the bugle 3 were present. Gents and lady be sworn. First doctor was called to the stand. Your age? 30 years. What school are you from? The American School of Osteopathy. What is the cause and cure of bilious fever? We find the cause of bilious fever to be that arterial action has been increased by heart to such velocity that veins cannot return blood. Contract veins and stop the equality of exchange between veins and arteries. What is fever, doctor? It is that temperature above normal caused by an increased action of electricity, the heart being the engine and the brain the dynamo, and the nerves the dispensers of electricity. The cure for all fevers is natural. Subdue the motor in motion and the sensory in sensation, then hands off until nature makes its ample rounds and construction takes the place of destruction, and health is the result. I awoke at this period, took a drink of water, a breath of fresh air, and all things were natural again. I began to feel cool, and that is all I know about it until I was in the dreamy state a second time, and I heard the words, Attention, worlds, in line, ye diplomats of osteopathy. A great and serious battle has been raging for 20,000 years between disease and health, fought valiantly with all implements that they could bring to bear upon the enemy, sickness and death. They never went into an engagement and came out victorious, but universally lost their men and all their flags. Their crippled and badly wounded are now in the ambulances and sent to the rear, and you are ordered front, into line immediately. Attack the enemy right, left, and center. His implements of war are gatlins, and we would term them now, all loaded with flux, fevers, climactic, lung, and brain diseases. In fact, about 10,000 kinds of compositions are in their cartridges of death. To the commanding generals he said, Your order is to charge all batteries, forts, gunboats, magazines, and everything and method that this undaunted enemy has brought to bear upon the human race for its destruction. You are ordered to heed not fire, water, nor the rumors of death, but to charge into the very center with drawn sabers, fixed bayonets, and rout the old enemy with the bright steel of reason, forged by the Infinite himself, and placed in your hands for the defense of you and yours. The bugle sounded, the charge and the fight began. It raged hot and heavy. Blood was split from the enemy and ran like rivers. General after general made his charge through the enemy, hot and cold, pained or painless, and disease and death raged in a thunderous voice and cried, "We are conquered, and will be conquered by the science which is the outgrowth of the mind of the God of all victories. We must study the tactics of osteopathy, or we will lose from now on battle after battle, for this new enemy uses no antediluvian tactics." And I saw battle after battle, and the enemy was forced to the wall.